Moment, yes. Okay, shalom, shalom, everyone. This is Gidon Ariel. I'm very happy to be with you today on Root Source. And I'm with Esther Henderson, my friend from New Zealand. Did I get that right, Esther?
Indeed, you did.
I bet a lot of our bet a lot of Root Source's audience have never even been to New York City. So I'm talking about the ones who live in the United States. So to get to New Zealand, forget it. I do have some friends, I think, who grew up in New Zealand, and besides you, I think I'm talking about Jewish friends who might even still be living in New Zealand. I understand, at least from my very good friend, his name is Mush, we call him. Is that Mush? No. It's somebody, Blitz, Andrew Blitz. All these British style accents are a little hard for me to remember who's who. Anyway, he I think was born in New Zealand, but after a while he moved to Australia to a bigger Jewish community. So I
Oh,
don't know.
right.
Anyway, so Esther, we met? We have met before on Zoom, am I right?
No, sorry, you're not. I've emailed you a bit, but I don't think I've ever Zoomed with you.
So then it's nice to meet you. And I'm thankful also for the questions that you asked me, and I'm glad that we have a chance now to discuss some of them. We don't have a lot of time, so let us see what you've got, and I'll see where it goes. How do you
Okie
like
doke.
that?
Yeah.
So, what questions have you got for me, Esther?
It sprang from the Easter. We've just had Easter, and was thinking about how Easter is for the Western world anyway has religious roots, and yet you get the whole country celebrates Easter. Although most of them it's just chocolate, eggs, and a holiday. And very few actually have a religious basis to their celebration. And it just made me think about Passover in Israel, and I wondered whether everyone, because I'm aware that not every Jew in Israel is necessarily, I believe there are atheists there as well. And I was wondering whether the secular world all celebrates Passover as well, without the religious overtones, if you like, if such a thing is possible.
So try to break that down into shorter questions, so I can get one at a time. How's that?
You want me to break the questions down?
Please do. Yeah, but give me one
Okay.
question, and I'll answer one question at a time.
Okay, so would every single Jew in Israel celebrate Passover in one way or another?
Okay, excellent question. And first of all, it's hard to say every single Jew about anything. There's a famous adage: two Jews, three opinions. But Israel, of course, is unique in that it is a Jewish state. We had Jewish states in really, we could say, ancient history. I mean, for the children today, 1960 was ancient history. But we're talking about, really over 2,000 years ago was the last, let's say, according to popular understanding of history, because I'm hedging what I'm saying. I'm not a historian. I'm not an academic historian, but I think that there might have been certain nascent Jewish states in various places in the world over the past 2,000 years. But disregarding those footnotes, the Jewish people have not had a independent state with Jewish cultural leading since the time of Jesus, really. And again, the Jewish people call that time the time of the Second Temple period. But there's no question that it is true that the end of the Second Temple period was the time of Jesus. And certainly for Christians, that is a much more important focus. So, and like I said, it's a little bit ironic that notwithstanding today's state of Israel, the most Jewish state, one of the most Jewish states in history was when Jesus was a citizen of that state. I'm using anachronistic phraseology. There's no states and no citizenship, but you get the idea. Anyway, today, as a Jewish state, we are trying to formulate what that means for ourselves. And to make a short answer long, I will say that the Jewish people, through its thousands of years of diaspora and dispersion, and the past few hundred years of coming out of the ghettos and experiencing things that have changed really in many ways what the Jewish people are, and all of that coming together in one small space that people have to make decisions together. And Israel today is not a monarchy. We don't yet have King Messiah deciding what he's going to do for all of us, if in fact that is going to happen, if he's going to decide, or if it's going to be more of a democratic process, which I frankly tend to believe. But right now, for sure, it's a democratic process, democratic country. So we have to take into consideration what everybody thinks. The beginning of the state, 75 years ago, there were great swaths of population sectors whose input was not really taken so much into consideration. From the very beginning, we had complete voting rights, suffrage, and so officially everybody had a chance, one person, one vote. But de facto, as a political activist myself, I can tell you, between one person, one vote, and how politics works, there's quite a wide difference. So you had Eastern Jews, for example, who moved to Israel from Eastern countries, from Muslim countries, that for a long time felt disenfranchised in certain ways. Women, of course, feel disenfranchised. Arabs feel disenfranchised. So everybody's feeling disenfranchised. Not everybody, we're working hard to bring these different people together. And I brought this all up as an introduction to what might end up being the only question we get a chance to answer today. To say that the former, I think the most previous president of Israel, whose name was Reuben Rivlin, happens to be a friend of mine, remember? I'm a politician, so I know these people. And he gave a famous speech entitled "The Five Tribes of Israel." It would be much more complicated if the number of tribes that he was talking about actually coincided with the 12 tribes of Israel. It would certainly make more poetic justice, but it would be much more difficult to where there would be too many breaks up. These were 5 simple breaks that everybody could understand because we recognize them and experience them all the time. They are first, not in any order. They are the ultra-Orthodox, which you mentioned in another question. Let's call them the national religious, if you will. They're perhaps modern Orthodox without getting into arguable differences between those. You have the Arabs, which are another sector, of course. You have the traditional, who are somewhere between the two religious that we mentioned, more the modern religious, and the last, which is the secular, which is people who aren't so religious. Now, he broke this up into 5 groups of 20% each, as if they're equivalent. They aren't really. They're just one second. Important phone call here. Hello. אני מדבר עם מישהו, מה קורה? כן, נו. ועכשיו אני צריך לשלם. כן. ביי. ביי. יופי. Okay, very good. So as I was saying, I think that there are a lot more traditionalists that we call Masortiim here in Israel than 20%. I think that there are a lot less, depending on how you define it, secular. There are a bit less, there are for sure less Arabs, etc. Anyway, this all came about because up until President Rivlin mentioned this, not like before it was not, no, but he gave it an authoritative stamp of approval that that's the situation, as opposed to the way that it had been understood. Again, not until his speech, but the thought really coalesced well, and that's why that speech is used as a pinpoint. Until then, the state of Israel was founded mostly by the non-religious Ashkenazi, the Eastern European background Jews who moved to Israel, Zionists who created the state and led the state primarily. But little by little, the leadership started to reflect more the makeup of the state of Israel, where you have, like I said, a fifth ultra-Orthodox in the Knesset today. A fifth of the Knesset is 120. So a fifth of that is 24. 24 members of Knesset is a fifth of the Knesset. So there are about 22. I'm not looking at it right now. About 22 ultra-Orthodox members of Knesset. About 24, something like that. About the same amount of regular religious members of Knesset. Yes, you're following? About 18 to 20 or so Arabs. Again, I might have that wrong. Maybe there's less represented in the Knesset. And so you're left then with two groups that it's really hard to identify them. They are the reason being is because Arabs, you can tell right away they're wearing a certain kind of headdress, usually. And if they're not, people can tell the difference. Like, I can't, not to mention, I'm not talking about people who convert from religion to religion. I'm talking about ethnicities. So I can't tell what your ethnicity is. I don't even know what's going on there in New Zealand, where you guys came from, where you're going. Who knows? But let's say that you had a big influx of immigrants around between the First and Second World War, like there were in other places, from Lithuania. Lithuania is Eastern Europe, right? Mid-East, I don't know. And then you also have then there was another movement from Spain. So obviously Lithuanians and Spaniards aren't the same, but after 2-3 generations, it's hard to tell the difference, not to mention that there have been intermarriage. So when you're wearing a kippah, when you're wearing a headdress, you can see exactly. You don't, from a mile away, you can tell who I identify with. Not to mention the ultra-Orthodox and the Arabs. So 3 of them, easy to identify. The other 2, they don't wear headdresses. It's hard to tell. But what's the deal? So, and that's 40%. First of all, that 40% is not a majority. They're already a minority. When they started in Israel, the secularists were a majority, and at the very least, they were holding on to a majority of the power points. And now, some of their parties haven't even passed the threshold. We're talking about the Labor Party for many decades, for decades, had over 40 members of the Knesset. We're talking about almost 40% of the Knesset. And now they barely have 4%. Pretty crazy. Anyway, I tend to disagree with, again, it's just a gut feeling, or maybe, if you will, a pipe dream, that those secularists are anywhere near 20%. It depends on how you count them. If you say an atheist, if you say a secularist is an atheist, he doesn't believe in God, he doesn't believe in the Torah, he doesn't accept upon himself anything whatsoever. So he's not going to have a Passover Seder. He's not going to give his son a circumcision, a Brit Milah. He's not going to do anything special on Shabbat. He's going to work 7 days a week. I mean, there's nobody like that in Israel. Zero. Over 95, 98% of Israelis have a family dinner on Passover, at the very least, giving lip service to the Passover handbook, the Haggadah, yes, which tells the story of how we came out of Egypt. We were slaves in Egypt. God took us out of Egypt, brought us, gave us the Torah, and ultimately brought us to the land of Israel. So that is, now, there might be some academics who say it's all a myth, just like the I don't know, the Native Americans, they have a myth that the I don't know, the sun and the moon had a child, and it was, yeah, all sorts of stuff like that. So they might not believe it, but they accept it as their myth, their founding myth. You follow what I'm saying?
Yeah, yeah.
We're not talking so much about what people actually believe. We're talking about what people do and what they're comfortable doing. And so those kind of people, like I said, I didn't even say it, they are represented in the Knesset, I would say, by the ultra left party, which includes people there who believe and do this Passover and all that stuff for sure. But like my daughter, for example, she decided to leave one of my daughters decided to leave the fenced community, if you will, of religious Judaism. Now she's in it. Now she's a non-religious Jew. She doesn't go to the synagogue. She doesn't refrain from doing certain actions on Shabbat. She's actually, if I remember correctly, uncomfortable with the Passover Seder, and so she likes to go, like thousands of Israelis, believe it or not, to Egypt, to Sinai, to take a weekend off when the rest of their family is doing that family thing on Passover. You have to understand, it's not just do you read intently the Passover handbook. The question is, are you able to spend an evening with the rest of your family? It's not just, it's a well-known, and of course, I have to tell you about Christmas dinner or Thanksgiving dinner. That crazy Uncle Harvey, he's here, he's going to make a mess for everybody, So that's a very big part of that dynamic. People say, I don't need that kind of drama,
Yeah.
So that doesn't necessarily, and I wouldn't be surprised, not surprised, it's well known that this kind of young men and women who travel abroad, they go to a place called Goa. You ever heard of a place called Goa? I think it's in India or something like that. It's
All right.
No, I don't know. I don't know what's going on. They can really let it all hang out over there and enjoy it and do whatever those young whippersnappers do. So there is an association called Chabad. You might have heard of Chabad.
Sorry.
Chabad. It's an organization that it tries its best to present Judaism, Jewish traditions to Jews who are in one measure or another have estranged themselves from those traditions, whether it's because they were born into a family who has been estranged or born into a family that was born into there are people that 2 or 3 generations have no idea of anything about Judaism, even in Israel, or so they say. It's a little hard for me to believe, but let's say I've not yet met anybody like that. I've met people who don't know too much about it; they haven't been taught, but it's in the air over here. When you see a billboard that says Shema Yisrael, you know what Shema Yisrael is, of course, yes.
Oh no, the second word.
Shema Yisrael is the famous "Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God."
Yes,
one.
yeah.
So to see a billboard in Israel today that says Shema Yisrael in Hebrew words, an Israeli Jew is going to be able to read it. I don't care If he never heard of the Torah at all, he sees Shema Yisrael, he can read it. He's much closer than some Jew in New Zealand who doesn't know Hebrew, is never going to see it. So we've got it, you see. So and so I was saying about this Chabad organization, they hold the largest Passover Seder meal in the world every year in Goa. And again, I might be getting it wrong. I hope some of the viewers will say, "No, it's not in Goa. It's in the Himalayas." I don't know. Certainly 1,000, maybe thousands of backpackers. They make their way to this place. They all help prepare it, and they all read the Haggadah. Some of them read it before in their lives. So you can't say that they're, no, I'm against it. I hate it. I'm an atheist. There's no, again, what does an atheist mean? Listen, I wake up every morning. I go to sleep. My body works okay. I see what's going on in the world. I'm 20, let's say. The world seems to be doing pretty well with that. I don't see any God. So there's no God. It's very easy to say there's no God nowadays, yes?
I don't know.
No. Obviously, somebody who's looking a little bit deeper, who's got pain in their lives, if all you do, Esther, you wake up in the morning, the alarm clock went off this morning, no problem. You get on the bus got there on time, no problem. You get to work, no problem. Come home, you watch your favorite TV show, everything's fine. You don't feel, I mean, again, I'm not talking about some people say, then all of a sudden one day, Esther, what's about me? I don't know how you became a Christian. But the vast majority of people who live in a secular, a-religious society, the fact that a-religious means we're trying to not offend anybody. Therefore, even if there's one person here who is a Muslim, then we're not going to have any Christian in the public domain. And we're going to have a lot of McDonald's and a lot of Oldsmobile, and a lot of Playboy, I don't know, and a lot of Hollywood. So we're managing without Jesus, we're managing without God, we're not managing without religion. From the very beginning, the Christian religion, again, I don't want to put any words in a Christian's mouth, but the Christian religion seems pretty easy. Love the Lord your God and love your fellow man. Basically, be nice. All right. So I don't believe in God, so I don't have to love him. That's okay. And I'm a pretty nice guy without that. Is it possible to have a good atheist person? An atheist good person? It's a question for discussion. But the bottom line is there are atheists who think that they're good people. They're doing okay. But in Israel, it's impossible. Because Israel is, at the same time, an ethnic state, because we're Jews, we're all of the same ethnicity, believe it or not. Me and that Ethiopian were brothers. We both came from the same forefather. And we both share the same religion. We might disagree on things, but that's the way it works. I disagree with my wife on certain things. What? I'm not going to disagree with some guy who came from a place I haven't seen in 2,000 years. So the bottom line is, I think your question was, does everybody celebrate Passover in Israel? And the answer is a resounding yes.
Well,
listen,
you got there.
Yeah, we've been going for close to half an hour. I would like to go to that afternoon prayer now. Let me first check before I say that. Maybe I got an answer. Come on, where'd you go? Yes, I have time. Whoa, 1 second.
Oh, okay.
So if it's okay with you, please review the question that you just asked me and tell me if I gave an answer or if I gave too much of an answer.
No, that was extremely interesting because I don't. I would just, if I can ask a little bit further, when you talk about the makeup of the Knesset, I realise that 20% for each of those 5 sectors is a very broad sort of a generalisation. But yes. Is there a legal
requirement,
a legal thing that says it must be a certain percentage of each, or it's just totally what gets voted in?
there is a legal law. There's a law in Israel right now for the past few decades that legislates a threshold, I forget the actual term, a threshold of votes. In other words, in the old days, you had some parties with only one member representation. In other words, the party, let's say it got 75% or 85% of the vote, right? Let's say that you had 100 members of Knesset. Make it a little bit easier mathematically.
Yeah, easier maths. Yeah.
So if a party, and let's say there's 10 million voters. Also, it's not like that. Today there's closer to, I don't know, 3 million. 10 million voters, 100 members of Knesset. So that means 100,000 votes per member of Knesset, right? If everybody votes.
Just double checking your maths there.
Let's say 100,000 is one.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
100,000 times 10 is a million. So that's
Yeah. You're right.
a million, and 100 is 10 million.
Yes, you're good.
I'm pretty good at those quick math things. So one party got 100,000 votes, or 100,001 votes. Let's again really make it very easy. Boom, you're in the Knesset. So in print, and how many parties? How many parties are in? What is the name of your parliament over there in New Zealand?
Oh, the New Zealand government. We've basically got two main parties, and at the moment we've got a coalition government like you guys.
You got two main parties, but you have a coalition. You mean
we've got
parties are working together?
No, we have two main parties, but we've got it's called MMP system, mixed member proportional representation. So we have 120 seats, I think it is, and if nobody gets a majority, they have to do deals with the smaller parties.
So how many small parties do you have over there? It sounds very similar to Israel.
Oh, it is probably very similar. We've got innumerable smaller parties, but at the moment there's a coalition of three. So we've basically got National Labour, which is right wing and left wing, although the right wing one is pretty central and the left wing is tipping over the edge of the left. But they're in coalition with two smaller but more right wing parties. So we've got a sort of right wing government at the moment.
Interesting. Anyway, so in Israel. So maybe do you have any idea how many parties are represented in your 126 person house?
In ours or in yours?
Yours.
In ours. There's only about 6 parties, I think.
You got 6 parties represented, so that doesn't sound like you have a lot of smaller parties. You've got 2 big parties.
No. I'm talking about how many you get on the ballot paper, but they don't get enough votes to get in there.
No. Forget about those. We got about 100 of those.
Yes. Yeah. We've probably only got about 6 parties that stand a reasonable chance of getting some kind of representation in the government.
So in Israel, let's see, we have today, I think, let's see, we got it's hard to say. I would guess we have about a dozen parties in the government.
Okay.
I think so. Maybe, yeah, something like that. But before we had this threshold thing of 4%, or maybe it's 5% like that, then one person can get in it, and theoretically, with our 10 million votes and 100 seats, you could have every member of the Knesset representing 100,000 people and nobody getting together, just making it too hard, because each member of Knesset would say, I need to, my platform was a lollipop for every child every day, so I'm not going to join any government without that. And you never have a government. So, same as you. So they thought that if they'd raise the platform, if they would raise the threshold, then fewer parties would get in, because you couldn't have a party getting in with just a single member. You need at least 4 members. So voila, with this 4% threshold, you now have, from a maximum of 25 of 100 members of the 100-member Knesset, you have 25. Only 25. Again, the chance that bottom line is today that's what we have, and we have one party. Netanyahu's party has about 30. Another smaller party has about 17. Smaller than them have about another one has like about 11, like that. And then you have about 6 parties with about 4 to 6, something like that. So it's a little harder than 2 single parties. Not that if you're a member of a party in the Knesset, you're always going to be so easy to handle. You're always going to vote according to the party line. It's not going to make any problems. But that's the way it works. So what was the question that we were trying to answer here?
I was just really wondering if there was some kind of a safeguard to ensure that you'd always have a Jewish majority as opposed to the Arabs being able to take over the Knesset.
Absolutely not. There's nothing legal that look, there is a law that says you must, in order to run for the Knesset, like in other words, if there were a party running in New Zealand and said, our platform is, as soon as we get into power, we're going to murder in cold blood all of the blonde, blue-eyed people in New Zealand. We hate that to hell. And if we get enough power, that's what's going to... Obviously, you can't let a party like that run. I mean, you don't want to have a party like that even... And you don't want the world saying, oh, yeah, sure. Oh, they let those murder... So in Israel, we have two rules, if I'm not mistaken. In order to run for the Knesset, you must not deny the Jewish and democratic nature of the state.
Oh, okay. Mm-hmm.
The problem is that neither of those things are very clearly defined. So that means that Arabs can run because we're a democratic state. If you don't let the Arabs run, just based on the fact that they're Arabs, then you're being anti-democratic. And on the other hand, if you do let them run, then you might be being anti-Jewish. So they say, yeah, I believe it, and then they go on and do whatever they want. It's not simple. It's not simple. But as far as those tribes are concerned, it's just demographics. The Orthodox. Yes, so we'll see. We have Aliyah. More and more people are making Aliyah, but some of those people aren't religious, and some of them aren't really even Jewish. It's fun. Never a dull moment.
Sounds like it. So, have you got time for me to spring those last 2 questions on you?
Let's do one at a time.
Okay. I was just wondering what the you talk about the ultra Orthodox and you talk about the Orthodox, and what's the actual kind of distinguishing dividing line between? I mean, I imagine that even within each of those broad categories, you've got about 100 subcategories.
It depends. Yes. Yeah, they're the ones who like chicken soup and the ones that don't like chicken soup. I mean, obviously, some of the differences aren't so important. The way it is like this: Orthodox. The word Orthodox means straight. Ortho, I think. Ortho. Yeah, ortho means straight, like orthodonture. And dox means what you think. I think. So Orthodox means thinks according to the party line. Thinks straight. So what happened is that a few hundred years ago, some Jews, together with some Christians, and really all over the world, there was this thing called the Renaissance, I think, and then there's some other word for it. And they said, you know what? We don't have to think like what everybody else thinks. There was this guy you might have heard of, Benedict Spinoza. He was actually a Jew, but he was very famous for opening up, being more open-minded, to think differently than what everybody else thinks. And today, freedom of thought. You tell me, do you know anybody who says no? People should not be allowed to think what they want to think. I mean, I think we all agree that God gave us a mind in order to use it. Now, there is such a thing as groupthink. Everybody says, whatever they say. And somebody else says, I disagree. Everybody looks at them, hey, we all agree on this. If you don't like it, get out. So there's public pressure, there's peer pressure to think a certain way. Here, I live in a community where everybody is the same in certain aspects. All of a sudden, somebody in the community starts thinking differently, starts behaving differently. So he's going to be meant to feel uncomfortable. I'm not saying that people get together and say, listen, what are we going to do about this guy? He's making us all uncomfortable. Let's vote to kick him out. We can't vote to kick him out. You're not allowed to kick somebody out just because, I don't know what, he stopped liking chocolate ice cream, or I don't know, something that they don't, no big deal, that nobody else outside would think was a bad thing. So let's just give the guy the silent treatment, and you don't even have to agree to do something like that. A person is going to feel uncomfortable when he's not with people that are like him. You know what I mean? That's the way it is. If you would move into a 99% Muslim community, you wouldn't feel comfortable. So you wouldn't want to do that in the first place. It's human nature. So Orthodox Jews, the way I understand history, were pretty much the way things were going up until about the 1700s. 1800s, a lot of Jews started thinking outside of the box. They started saying, hey, I'm going to go intermingle with the Christians out there. I'm going to go to university together with them. I'm going to look into communism. I'm going to go look into capitalism, whatever. I'm going to not think about Torah all day long. So at first, the Jewish community did what I was just mentioning before. They excommunicated people. Said, listen, either you toe the line or get the hell out. Let's see if you manage out there without mommy and daddy. But after a while, they were managing because the world, the Western world, started becoming more open to people behaving like individuals. There's endless sociological reasons for this. Cities started to become bigger things. People could survive in cities without, it didn't happen in a day, but they could survive in a city without their family support system, that kind of thing. So anyway, so that's how what it's called the heterodox movement started, which means we're not Orthodox. We think whatever we want. And we're also Jews. So that, and then came the Holocaust. First of all, came the great wave of assimilation in the first half of the 20th century, when great percentage, dozens of percentages of Jews decided to abandon their Jewish behavior and their Jewish lifestyle, or their Orthodox Jewish lifestyle, we'll call it. So a famous image for us Jews, I'll share it now. Have you ever heard of tefillin? It's called, in English for some reason, it's called phylacteries. So these are prayer boxes, simplifying thing. You put them on your arm and on your head, and you pray the morning prayer, and put them away, and the next morning you put them on again, etc. So what happened was people were taking the boat from Europe to America, and just before they got to Ellis Island, understand, millions of Jews emigrated from Europe to America. Just before they got to Ellis Island, they took their tefillin and they threw them overboard. It's not anymore. Have you ever heard of such a thing? Again, do I know anybody who did this? Did my grandfather? I don't know. But that is the caricaturish image of what happened to Judaism, to jewelry. A vast, striking exodus from traditional jewelry. And then came the Holocaust, which emaciated even more Orthodox Jewry, just physically. But then you had a lot of Orthodox Jews who were holding on up until the Holocaust. And they said, what kind of God would allow such a thing? That's it. I don't believe in God. So you're left with barely 10% of Judaism. Sorry, 10% of Jewry, of Jews, who have any connection to religion at all. So then you
That's
live
10% worldwide. Well, 10% in
worldwide.
Europe.
Exactly.
Worldwide. Wow.
No, Europe was emptied out. So and
Mm.
basically what you had left was the United States. Eastern Europe was emptied out. United States, England, France, Belgium, a few other places, but that's it. And the United States were already come to America and leave those tefillin at home. So there was and again in Israel you had the people who were ideologically non-religious, who were they were bodybuilding, they were building the country. And they said, "We are the new heroes. Leave your rabbis for the history books. We're the new heroes. Be like us." So it was very difficult to be religious in the first few decades of Israel, but we made it through it, and so that is how come. And then of course it got stronger and stronger, more natural reproduction, bigger families, and altogether we became pretty strong up until at this point. Especially if you include traditionalists, people say, listen, I don't know from history. All I know is that I like going to the Passover Seder. I like listening to this specific rabbi on YouTube. I feel comfortable in a kippah that I don't wear all the time, but I do. And I'm trying to get stronger. It's a little hard for me to keep Shabbat every week because I like going to the football game, but I'll do what I can do. So that kind of people who are philo-Orthodox, between the ultra-Orthodox, the modern Orthodox, which I know I owe you an answer to differentiate between them, and the traditionalists, then you got 60% of the country. We're already a majority.
Mm.
And that is Prime Minister Netanyahu's pre-war cabinet. Before the war, he put together a government of his Likud party, which is the main traditionalist party, including many religious in it. The National Religious Party, I think it's called. I'm a Likudnik, so I don't know too much about the other ones. And two ultra-Orthodox parties. I think that's it. And that's it. And that was enough. You got 20, 35, and 30. Yeah, obviously a lot 20. You got more than 60 there. And
85.
then came the war, and so we wanted to bring in more centrists. Whole story. But that's what Israel looks like.
Mm.
And again, now to answer your real question, what is the difference between Orthodox and ultra-Orthodox? So again, different ways to slice that apple. The ultra-Orthodox, I think, comes to really try to simplify it in one way quickly. The ultra-Orthodox say, listen, look at this stupendous, incredible history that we have that goes all the way back to Moses and Abraham and Adam. And it is God's Torah. And we want to be as much like those pristine Torah people, as much keep out all the outside influences. That's what we want to do. So obviously, we need to eat, so we need to have some money, so maybe we'll do some business, a little of this, but minimal. What's most important to us is to learn God's Torah and to do his mitzvot. And in order to differentiate ourselves more easily, we're going to wear the uniform. Either you're with us or you're without us. We want to make it very clear to our kids, listen, see how comfortable it is at home? We got nice heating. You want to go out there and not have anything in your any home? Go right ahead. But don't say we didn't warn you. It doesn't work that way. So that's, in spite of that, you have 10% attrition. I don't know, people saying, listen, I like this. I don't want to do this. I see that I met some non-religious people. They're going out to the movies Friday night. I want to join them. You can't. You can say whatever you want. I'm leaving. You need to be religious. You need to be a religious family in order for the kids to rebel. All the kids rebel. But anyway, so that is Orthodox. Orthodox say no changes. as much as we can to keep it the way it was in the 17th century. Because the way it was in the 17th century is the same way it was in the 7th century BC. Not like that. The Orthodox Jews, on the other hand, again, simplifying, they say, listen, something has changed in God's world. We certainly believe in the Torah. We believe in the authority of the Torah and the commandments. We believe in the reality of the commandments. We have to do the commandments. But the point of the world, that's really the difference. What is the goal of the world? In the ultra-Orthodox world, the goal of life is to stay as close as you can to your father's, grandfather's, great-great-grand way of life, and not change things as much as you can. The Orthodox Jews say, listen, we are coming close towards the end of times here, towards the end times, towards the ends of history. Our history ends with the Messiah. The Messiah is a code word for the redemption of the Jewish people, for the redemption of the whole world, but specifically for the redemption of the Jewish people. And that includes coming back to Israel, creating a viable Jewish state here, speaking Hebrew, God, the language of the Torah, many other things. And that's happening. So I want to work with God to change the world. Not I want to work because God told me don't change the world. So it's a vast difference. But there are a lot of overlaps because really what's very important for me, as we spent a little time talking, is I want to pray at the certain times that I'm supposed to pray. So what am I going to do? I'm going to go look for a synagogue. So obviously in my community, you have 100 families. We got one synagogue, maybe two synagogues. So I get one choice. If I live in Jerusalem and it's 10:30 at night, where the heck am I going to pray? I'm going to go to the ultra-Orthodox place because they get prayers all night long. I'm confident that I'm going to be able to find a quorum that I'm going to be able to pray with. So that's one place where it overlaps. The other place is, okay, I believe, another thing, that all Jews are brothers. We're all members of the same family. So I have to relate as a brother. Love thy neighbor as yourself. Love thy brother as yourself. So I have to relate to the ultra-Orthodox just like I relate to the atheists, no less. It's complex, but I would say that the biggest difference is that kind of political difference. In other words, these guys vote for the ultra-Orthodox parties whose main goal is to make life better, is to use the budget of the state of Israel to make life better for their constituents. Obviously, what I've just said is a description of many parties all over the world. But better for their constituents means more social support. You know, if you learn Torah, we're going to give you 1,000 shekels a month or something like that. Okay, so the non-Orthodox say, what the heck? Why should they get money just for sitting? Yeah, but that's what he said. Whatever. I'm not going to get too much into it. That is their party, and our party is make sure that you support the army better because all of our kids go to the army. Make sure you support the schools that teach people to want to go into the army. Our schools also, etc. Make sure you support the settlements here. I live in a settlement. I assume you've heard of the West Bank, Judea and Samaria, of course.
Has anyone in the whole world not heard of the West
Exactly.
Bank?
So it's a political issue over here. A majority of the national religious think that it's a big commandment, both from the Torah and real politics, geopolitics today, to settle in the West Bank. Other people think it's against. So we want more budget to go towards the settlements. The ultra-Orthodox, we don't care. Sometimes they'll even say, yeah, we're against, because they want to show that they're different. Whatever. That's really internal politics. But obviously, notwithstanding the uniform, the main differences, I think, are the political ones, which all stem from, are we just business as usual as far as our relationship with God and God's relationship to history and the world and the state and the Jewish people and the land of Israel? Or has there been a tectonic change since the Holocaust and the founding of the state of Israel and the Six-Day War? And we have to go with God in order to bring his plan to fruition. I think you can tell from the tone that I used to describe those two things which one I more agree with.
Yeah, no, I'm interested that you say about that you'd be able to go into an ultra-Orthodox synagogue in Jerusalem and that they wouldn't look at you sideways if you weren't wearing the black coat and the black hat and everything. You'd just join in.
Listen, obviously there are unwritten rules of engagement. Like I wouldn't go and say like sometimes there's a sign in some of these synagogues that says you're only allowed to pray with a certain accent, believe it or not. Believe it or not. It's hard maybe I'm not translating it right. There are different ways to pronounce, or a different way of pronouncing, like the word Shabbat. Yeah,
yes.
You've heard the word Shabbat. So the last letter in the word Shabbat is a tav, usually translates like a T, but it's often but according to some of the ultra Orthodox, it's translated like an S sound. So instead of Shabbat, it's Shabbos. You might have heard of the word Shabbos also. Anyway,
yeah.
When you're praying, you want God to hear you in the right way. You want to talk the right way. So they say and it's become an issue. Should you pray this way, that way? No. Most of the national religious, they pray the same way they talk because Hebrew is their language. So the ultra Orthodox, they emphasize the fact that wasn't and isn't the way that they talk. But all right, so I'm not going to go to that synagogue and say, no, I'm going to pray this way, right? I'm not going to make a fight. I didn't come here to fight. I came here to pray.
Right.
So it's their turf. I can't think of something off the top of the head that I feel offended by the way that they do it. So I go do it that way. Here, for example, I'll share a sin of mine. I'm like a lot of people that it's a little hard for me to stay away from my cell phone.
Tut.
Yeah. All right. Okay. So sue me. Anyway, and in the prayers, there are times when you're waiting. You finished your prayer, you're waiting for the next stage of the prayer. So some people just, first of all, so why are you waiting? Because not everybody's finished that stage. So some people, they're not waiting, they're in the middle of praying. It takes me, let's say, 5 minutes to pray a certain stage of the prayer. I'm sorry, I'm not going to answer you now. 5 minutes to say a certain. Other people, it takes them 10 minutes. So we wait until the last guy finishes. So what am I going to do for 5 minutes?
You're going to look at your cell phone in the middle of prayers.
But there's a sign that says, nobody allowed into this room with a cell phone. Do not use your cell phones under no circumstances, blah, blah. Okay, what do I take out my cell phone? No, does somebody say, take them out, tar and feather? That's the way it happens. Listen, sometimes, very infrequently, and frankly, I'm not even sure. Some of these places that I go to, they're in Jerusalem. It's a very ultra-Orthodox city. It's the biggest ultra-Orthodox city in Israel. You might have heard of Bnei Brak. Bnei Brak is well known as the biggest ultra-Orthodox city in Israel. But in Bnei Brak, they only have barely, I think, 150,000 residents.
Okay.
In Jerusalem, we have close to 1 million residents. Yesterday, I heard that we have over 1 million residents. So about half of them are ultra-Orthodox.
I was just about to say how many of the million are ultra-Orthodox. So it'd be 500,000 ultra-Orthodox just in Jerusalem.
I might have got that number wrong. I don't want to spend time looking for it. Let's say 300,000 are
quite a few anyway.
I think, based on what I heard, the results of the last municipal elections in Jerusalem, I think we are around 50%. But it doesn't matter. When you got twice the amount of ultra-Orthodox, and they all live pretty much together. So you're going to have a lot of these synagogues that one prayer after the other. In my community, wait a second, what do I do? I have prayer 1:30 or at 7, so I better make sure that I get to one of them. By then they say, I'll do whatever I want, whenever I feel like it, I'll go and I'll pray. It's not such a big deal because that's their luxury. My luxury is wherever I want to, I can walk into a McDonald's. We got McDonald's all over the place. I don't go to McDonald's. I'm just saying that, but they don't go to McDonald's, so it's not a big deal for them. So a bank. I got a bank on every corner. Once upon a time. All right, so, but if I don't use the bank, so every community, every society, and their luxuries and what's important to them. So that's it. So we go, and if I really want to pray because I gotta go, so I'll go 10 minutes out of my way, go to one of those synagogues, and be on my way. Anyway, nowadays, if I may say, it's the the political and media fight against ultra-Orthodox, if I may say, also known as Haredi, if you ever heard that phrase, Haredi, is now it goes in comes and goes in waves. You guys are not Beseder, we have to change things, whatever. Nowadays it's getting tough because there are people of those, remember those 5 tribes?
Yes.
So
yeah.
the national religious, the traditional, and the secular, they're all falling in war. All of them. Barely any Arabs and barely any ultra-Orthodox are falling in war because they're not in the army. There are out of from time to time you find one every month or so. But in Israel, we've got already 600 soldiers have fallen. So people are saying, I don't get it. These people that live in here, they're Jews. Mainly the Arabs. You get the whole Arabs or the Muslims. Well, for whatever reason, people don't talk about that enough. I think they don't talk about it too much. But why should this Jew? We both get on the same bus to go to work in the morning. I go to work. He goes. I don't know where he goes, to the yeshiva maybe. And my kid is in the army, and his kid is I don't know what his kid is doing. Come on, go to the army. What does this have to do? Well, you have to go to the yeshiva, you have the army, Torah. They have all sorts of reasons, but it's not described well enough for the majority of Israelis, and they are upset about it. Or it's hard for me to say majority, because really knows. The Poles. Anyway.
I did understand that there were a number of ultra-Orthodox that did want to join the army, that were working in that direction.
Again, if we're talking about 20% of the 10 million people who live here, we're talking about 2 million ultra-Orthodox, let's say. So you're talking about a few thousand, even. I don't think
right. So it's not really that many.
Pardon me?
It's not really that many.
Not to mention that the way that they define ultra-Orthodox for the purposes of this issue is, did the person in question go to an ultra-Orthodox school in high school? Right? So a lot of the people who are being accepted into these ultra-Orthodox programs, because they have to go to a special program, they're not even religious anymore.
Oh, right.
So it's a whole mess, and they don't talk about that so much.
Right.
Anyway, these are the small. Believe me, these are the small problems of Israel right now. But I think the reason this again, it's true that it's not, doesn't look good and doesn't feel good when most of my neighbors' kids are putting their lives on the line, and this ultra-Orthodox guy, he's barely even praying for me. Not going to, and he's not. So that's uncomfortable. But I think the bigger reason is the bitterness that the secular, the previous leaders, the leading echelon of the state. We're talking about Ben Gurion and his friends, yes? The ones who came from Eastern Europe, not religious, kibbutz. Then they took over the media, took over. There were enough of them, and they said, this is a hill that we have to keep our flag on. The media has to be controlled by the liberal left, let's call it. Sound familiar? I bet you it's that way all over the world. The academia, the legal system, the lawyers, and especially the judges, and maybe a few others that I met. So these places are big strongholds from the media, from the liberal left. But even though the majority of the country a long time ago has become more center-right, traditional center-right. So, but those bastions of power, they're holding on tight. But it's a losing cause for various reasons. Mostly because of two reasons. There's a lot of immigration. These the children of these leaders of the liberal left are saying, why would I want to live in Israel? I'm a cosmopolitan citizen of the world. I'm moving to Germany. All right, go move to Germany. But then you're not in Israel anymore, so there's even less people to fight your fight. And all this, of course, starts out when demographically, again, things are changing a little bit, but you've got about an average of 6, 7 kids to each family in the Orthodox and ultra-Orthodox. And you've got 1 kid, 1.5 kids, and a dog is the average in the secular families. A famous radio interview that I remember, I don't even know if it really happened, but I like telling you about it, was there were two elder statesmen of the ultra-Orthodox and the ultra-anti-Orthodox. They were debating on a radio program or something, or they were interviewing in the news program. And so it was the internet. So in the middle, the ultra-Orthodox guy said, tell me, Tommy, his name was Tommy Lapid. Tell me, do you have any grandchildren? I said, sure. Yeah, really? How many? He said, yeah. Got 1 grandchild. He's my pride and joy. He said, well, guess what? I have 100 grandchildren. This interview is unnecessary. That's the situation. It's pure Democrat around. So that's something that they don't talk about a lot, but that's the way it looks.
Yeah.
So here we are. We've even run over, at least according to what I see over here, over an hour. So if you had another question, save it for another time.
You've done well. You've done well.
I hope that you've enjoyed it. I hope that we'll be able to make use of this video, and I appreciate your being willing. Let me if anybody's made it to the end of this video, if you have any questions for me and would like to share them and be like Esther has been a good sport and ask them on YouTube so we can feature them for other members of the Root Source community, then be blessed. Please contact me, send me an email, or contact me here or on Facebook or anywhere. Just look up Gidon Ariel Root Source and you'll find me. You should know that by now. Or respond to the newsletter here that we've that you got to us by, whatever. Try our best to be communicative. So Darabah, have yourself a good holiday. We didn't even get to talk too much about Easter. Next time, make another community. Maybe as you can see, if I have time, I'm happy to engage.
Good on you. Thanks, Gidon.
Shalom, shalom.
Bye.